Starting off the week at Monday, we had to check out our local Goodwill store. I headed to the back where I found a few Xbox 360 games, but honestly, these are games that I don't really need or want. I ended up finding this Harry Potter game for $4 for the PlayStation 2, which caught my eye, and then a few more Xbox 360 games here that weren't really that interesting. I ended up finding a Wii Fit board for $6, but I'm not picking that up. I saw this cool looking Steam Deck case, but I've already got one, so for $4, I figured I'd leave this behind for whoever was looking for one. Then I ended up finding this Borderlands figure, but I didn't need it. So I left there and went to this other thrift store, which I don't go to very often, simply because they don't really have much good stuff. They had a few games here, a few nunchucks, but they were beat up and just not even worth it. And they had a ton of Xbox One and Wii games, but nothing that was even remotely worth picking up here. Starting off this video, I knew I had to go to my local Goodwill store because that's where I go so often. And honestly, they didn't really have much. I saw that Harry Potter game, but I already have it in my collection. And for $5, I don't really need it. So I left it behind, as well as that Steam Deck case. That was pretty cool if you're interested in one of those. But then I left and went to the second thrift store, and it was a complete bust. So hopefully day 2 we can pick up some games. Starting off on Tuesday, I ended up going into my local pawn shop where I found this Nintendo Switch dog bone Joy-Con holder for $15. A few games here. Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I almost should have picked this up, but I passed on it. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for the Xbox 360 for only $2. I had to grab that. There was a Spyro. There was even Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy. These were some pretty decent pickups or finds, I guess, but I didn't really need most of those. I checked the section of game consoles and didn't really see anything that I absolutely had to have here. So I moved on, where I actually ended up grabbing that Marvel vs. Capcom. They only gave this to me for $1, which is insane. Then right next door is the thrift store, so I stopped again. And I found a few games here. NBA 2K13, obviously not a game I'm interested in. Neither am I in this Xbox One or this Kinect game. I already got this sports game. I also have both of these Nerf games on the Wii, which is pretty interesting and fun, as well as a PS4 VR game. I almost never see these in the wild. And then a Rabbids game, but nothing really worth it. Starting off day 2, we had to roll into the pawn shop, and I'm so glad I did because I found Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for the Xbox 360. Someone wrote $2 on it, so when I took it up to the counter, she was like, okay, that's $2. And then she brought me my change and said, I only charged you $1, which is totally amazing because 1, I need this for my collection and I really can't wait to play this. And 2, this game's worth around $14, so definitely well worth it. So let's see what day 3 can bring us. Day 3 has me going back to my local Goodwill store, and I am so glad that I did because they restocked the game section, which is totally awesome. I found Wipeout 3 for the Nintendo Wii U for only 99 cents. I don't have this in my collection, so you definitely know I'm gonna be keeping that. Then I found Madden 12 for the PlayStation 3 here. Now, for $4, I'd usually leave this behind. However, as you can see, it is still sealed, so I went ahead and grabbed that as well. And they even had more PS3 games, Killzone 2, as well as Madden 09 here. And then right as I put this down, I noticed there were more games back here. We've got Battlefield Bad Company and Fallout New Vegas. I picked this up because I don't have this version of it, as well as MotorStorm, which is an absolutely amazing game, but I've got a few copies of that in my collection. Down below, I found a Nintendo DS game, Happy Feet 2. And when I was leaving to check out, I ended up finding Bratz Diamonds for the GameCube. You know it's a GameCube game. I can't pass this up for that price. I am so glad that I went back to this Goodwill because I found some really good games. First off, Wipeout 3 for only 99 cents. This game's worth about $10 currently in that condition. Then we've got Madden 12 for $4. This game's worth around $13 to $14 sealed. Then we've got Fallout New Vegas, which I paid, again, $4 for. This is worth around $15. And last but not least was that Bratz game. For $4, this is worth around $20. So this is a definitely a great day here, so let's see what we can find in day 4. Day 4 has me heading back into the local pawn shop. I figured since I hit big at Goodwill, I'd check out the pawn shop today. I ended up seeing this Google Stadia controller, but for 30 bucks I left it behind. Then I checked out the games, but there wasn't really anything here that was worth it, and most of the new stuff was already gone. But behind the counter, I noticed they had a few Switches, and I ended up getting a Switch for a pretty good deal here, and as well, Pokemon Violet, so definitely awesome there. Then I went next door to the thrift store that is right there, and I went in and headed in to see if there were any different games. There wasn't anything different, but I did find this Kinect Adventures for the Xbox 360. I walked into the thrift store and the pawn shop that are right next to each other. First off, that pawn shop didn't really have anything in the glass case or on the shelves, but behind the counter, they actually ended up having a Nintendo Switch Lite for $120, and I have special plans for this thing for an upcoming video, so that's why I grabbed this, as well as Pokemon Violet, which I don't actually already have in the collection, so for 30 bucks, I saw this and knew I had to pick it up, but 150 bucks for both of these is actually a pretty good deal. Let's see what day 5 has for us. Day 5 has me headed into the antique mall that I always love checking out. I ended up finding another copy of Kinect Adventures. I feel like this is everywhere. Then I found this interesting VR headset, but not one that I needed. Also, this weird knockoff AC cable for a PlayStation 2. I kept walking where I found this NES controller for $6. Not a bad deal there. Then I found a stack. The stack has been here for a while of Xbox One games, as well as these Nintendo DS games in this glass case. I haven't seen one of these in a long time, but for 10 bucks, I don't need it because I've got a few in my collection. Then this Xbox 360 needs repair. There's 2 of them for 50 bucks. As you can see, they still have their warranty stickers intact, but I ended up not picking this up. And another sports game randomly laying here. But on my way home, I stopped at this garage sale where I ended up finding a white Nintendo Wii U. They had it listed for 50 bucks. I asked for 40 and they ended up taking it, which is totally awesome. Since I was recently at the antique mall, I didn't really find anything that I needed to pick up. But luckily, on my way home, I ended up stopping at a garage sale and finding this white Nintendo Wii U for only $40. It's absolutely awesome. It came with all the cords and everything. And I just realized it even had a Nintendo 3DS charger in it as well. So I'm not mad about that. But I wish there were some games. There weren't any. And I opened it up and plugged it in and everything. And nothing was in it. But for 40 bucks, I couldn't pass this thing up. Day 6 has me going to the flea market. Now, if you saw this video in the last week is when I went to this, so watch the whole video if you haven't already. But there was some pretty good stuff that I ended up finding here, but there's also some stuff that was way overpriced, like this Nintendo 64 power adapter, as well as a few controllers back here that were just way too overpriced. 20 bucks for a controller is a little too much in my opinion. Then I ended up finding Harvest Moon Light of Hope for the Switch for my wife for 20 bucks. But nothing really caught my eye other than that right here, right away. Then I went and kept looking where I ended up stumbling upon a few Nintendo 64 games, which you know I've always got to check out when I see them out in the wild. Then I moved on to the Wii section where I found GoldenEye 007, but 15 bucks at a flea market is just a little too much for me. I also found Guitar Hero Aerosmith for 4 bucks. And they actually had 2 copies of this, and when I went to pay, he said it was 5 bucks, which is really super annoying. But these are worth about 12 to 15 bucks, so I ended up picking them up. Then I headed to the next booth where they ended up having a bunch of Switch games and even a Mario Kart Wii, a bunch of Wii U, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, a ton of games here. Then they had a bunch of loose cartridge like Switch and 3DS and DS games, as well as Super Mario All-Stars for 30 bucks, which is crazy. Then I ended up picking up Ratchet & Clank and God of War for the PS5. I've been looking for these games. This flea market ended up being pretty interesting. Again, Guitar Hero Aerosmith, 2 copies for 5 bucks each, and they are complete. They did have a sticker on the spine that said $4, and it really bugs me when the prices on the sticker aren't the prices for the games, but I guess it is what it is. And I ended up picking up some PlayStation 5 games. I've really been looking for God of War Ragnarok, but every time I find it, someone wants like $60 or $65 for it, so picking this up for $35 was definitely worth it. And then Ratchet and Clank for $20. I couldn't pass this one up. Day 7, back to where we started, the local Goodwill store, and this was an amazing find. They had a few things here in the glass case that were interesting, but when I went to leave, I ended up finding 2 Nintendo Switch games for only $3.99, which is absolutely crazy to me, and I'm so shocked that I found these. I had to go back to the Goodwill where I started on day 1, and I am super shocked that I ended up finding both of these Switch games. First off, Zelda Breath of the Wild, but I think this is the German version. I still had to pick it up. And then a Katamari Damacy reroll for $4 each. Absolutely amazing. This whole video, this whole week turned out to be a really good example of if you get out there and go game hunting, you can find some good games. I think I found 14 games and 2 game consoles, which is totally amazing. I'm gonna have to definitely do this again, but I'm shocked that I found this much. I'm gonna go ahead, clean all these games up, and test them and make sure they work. So I'm getting out of here, so check out that video out if you haven't already. But what do you think was the best game that I ended up picking up, whether it was from a Goodwill, a thrift store, a pawn shop, a flea market, garage sale? There was a ton of places I went this week, and honestly, I am so happy and so stoked we found all this stuff. But I'm getting out of here, so check out that video right there if you haven't already.